on the futures of integration and human knowledge and civilizational development. We have a very well-renowned, worldly known scholar who will be presenting his talk today. This is the second lecture. The first one was given by Professor Usman Bakar last time. Before I go to introduce to him, let me mention the topic today. The topic is a very relevant and a very important topic which needs to be addressed. It is Islamization of the self, a much neglected dimension of intellectual discourse of Islamization of human knowledge. To introduce Professor Muhammad Kamal Hassan, Professor Tansari, Dr. Muhammad Kamal Hassan, it is a challenging task because he is very, very well known. And his recent book is a very important book which has come out recently. But before I do that, I need to go a little bit into the archaeology of Islamization of knowledge. I have here with me the 1982 version of Islamization of Knowledge book, which was written by Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, of whom several of us are students, especially Professor Osman, Professor Kamal, and me. And I'm grateful for the presence of Professor Dr. Usman Bakar and the Dean, Professor of Istac, Professor Abdulaziz Barghouth, Professor Tamim Usama, Professor Muhammad Mumtaz Ali, and several others. Now, I was mentioning about this book. I have the 1982 version, which came out of the conference held in Islamabad at Islamic University in 1982, which and this book is published from by Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi from his own house, Wyncote, Pennsylvania. And there's a list of 50 people who attended the Islamabad conference in 1982. And there are several prominent scholars of Islamization of knowledge: Khurshid Ahmad, Umar Farooq Abdullah, Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Professor Taha Jabir Al-Alwani, Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qardawi, Abdullah Nasif, and several others. And there is a name of a young scholar here, the young pioneer of Islamization of knowledge from Malaysia. There are two names. The first name is that of Muhammad Kamal Hassan from UKM, Department of History, and Anwar Ibrahim, Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim. So with this mining of the archaeology of Islamization of knowledge, I welcome Professor Kamal Hassan this morning to this very, very important meeting which we are having today and discuss about this topic. Let me introduce Professor Kamal Hassan before giving the mic to him. Professor Emeritus Muhammad Kamal Hassan was born in 1942 and obtained his BA honors from University of Malaya in 1966, and his MA, MPhil, and PhD from the renowned Columbia University in New York in 1970, 73, and 76, respectively. A very, very important university and an intellectual center in the United States. He was appointed as the third rector of the International Islamic University, Malaysia, served as the first holder of the Malaysia Chair of Islam in Southeast Asia at Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, Georgetown University, from 1997 to 1999, where he taught 2 postgraduate courses. His career as an academic and as an administrator of Istac-Iium began in 1983 and officially ended in 2017. So he comes with a hands-on experience on implementation of Islamization of knowledge in Malaysia, and so we will benefit from his experience and his knowledge today. His main research interest is on the issue of Islamization or Tawhidization of human knowledge, which is the alternate name for Islamization of knowledge. He has been appointed by the current rector of Istac-Iium, Tansari Zulkifl, as an honorary advisor to the Center of Islamization centrist since 2019, and he continues to contribute intellectually and academically towards the betterment of Istac-Iium and fulfilling its vision and mission. And we all bear witness to his continued activity, continued contribution. His most important research and publication is represented in the 3-volume Natural Science from the Worldview of the Quran 2018. Which he produced as the chief editor and a writer with several Muslim scientists from 2011 until 2014. His important work, Voice of Islamic Moderation from the Malay World, which I have read recently, was published, not recently, a few years ago, was published by Emir Sadar Berhad in 2011. And another very important book, the Malay Concept of Sejahtera from an Islamic perspective, was published by Iohk Press in 2021. His latest book, a very, very relevant book, and a very, very striking title, and which I look to read, it just came out last week, is Corruption and Hypocrisy in Malay Muslim Politics, The Urgency of Moral Ethical Transformation, a book of 276 pages. I really look forward to reading this book, published by Emir Research in Kuala Lumpur, and it was just launched last week or so on 16 December 2021. With this introduction, I welcome Professor Kamal Hassan to make his presentation this morning. Welcome, Professor Kamal Hassan.
Thank you very much, Prof. Imtiaz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana lihadha wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. My dear brothers and colleagues, Professor Imtiaz as the moderator, Professor Osman Bakar, Professor Abdullah in Chicago, Professor Abdulaziz Barghut, the Dean of Istac, Professor Tamim, Dr. Shehu, Professor Mumtaz, and many others from IIUM. Alhamdulillah, I must express my gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for it is by His grace and by His mercy that I'm able to be with you this morning and to share with you a topic that is very well known in IIUM circle. The topic is Islamization of the Self, a much neglected dimension of intellectual discourse of Islamization of human knowledge. I'm happy that Prof. Imtiaz referred to the 1982 book of Al-Marhum Al-Faruqi. I don't recall the contents now, but I believe that Islamization of the self is not part of the content. And also in the deliberations in Islamabad, still the focus was on human knowledge per se, and not on the human self. All right, now I have several parts, and I hope I will have the time to read most of this from my written paper. My introduction is as follows. Much has been written, discussed, and debated on the subject of Islamization of human knowledge ever since the discourse was started by its prominent proponents such as Professor Said Naqib Al-Attas, Al-Marhum Professor Dr. Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi, Al-Marhum Professor Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Al-Marhum Sheikh Taha Jabir, and many others. It was clear to the perceptive Islamic scholars and intellectuals that Western imperialism, colonialism, secularism, and secular modernity had negative, pernicious, and disastrous impacts on the education culture, and civilization of the Muslims. Many young Muslims came under the impact of secularized and westernized knowledge, and in the process lost their Islamic identity. I think Professor Ismail Faruqi went through this process when he was in Beirut, but later on, thanks to the efforts of Muslim brothers and scholars in USA, he became a mainstream intellectual for the Islamization of human knowledge. This was the historical and sociological background of the emergence of the intellectual discourse and movement known popularly as Islamization of Knowledge, Iohk. Now, I personally prefer to call it Islamization or Islamization of human knowledge, underline human, because the word knowledge translated into Arabic is ilm. In the Quran, ilm refers to true knowledge, God's knowledge, and knowledge revealed by God, all of which are true, pure, perfect, and infallible. It would be absurd, if not blasphemous, to suggest that we Islamize God's knowledge or divine revelation like the Quran and other authentic books of God. It is human knowledge, underline again, human. It is human knowledge which is acquired by human reason or experience that is not infallible, value-free, or always true. It is this intellectually or experientially acquired knowledge that needs correction, revision, refutation, or critique. It is therefore necessary to qualify the word knowledge to human knowledge, because standing by itself, the word knowledge would include God's knowledge. Hence, we in IIUM prefer to use the phrase Islamization of human knowledge instead of Islamization of knowledge. As a matter of fact, I popularized the use of the phrase Islamization of human knowledge, Iohk, after I became the third rector of IIUM. I also realized in general, the contemporary literature and debate on Islamization of knowledge emphasize the importance of Islamizing knowledge without addressing the issue of the knowledge producer, the human agency responsible for developing, producing, or disseminating knowledge. I felt that too much emphasis was given to knowledge and philosophy of knowledge per se, or science and philosophy of science per se, and too little attention was given to the knowledge producer, knowledge constructor, or the knowledge seeker, or the scientist, who is a human being with all kinds of problems in his or her thought, worldview, attitudes, biases, and ethical behavior and character. Thus, in my definition and explanations on Islamization of human knowledge in the IIUM, Iohk consists of two dimensions. We repeat this every time we discuss Islamization of knowledge, that it has two dimensions, the academic and the non-academic, as well as the personal dimensions. So the second dimension is called in IIUM Islamization of the self, Aslamatun Nafs, which will be elaborated shortly. Now, in the book, which we call IIUM, I'm not sure if you can see this.
Yes, we can see, Prof. We can see.
Okay. Yeah, this is, do you have it with you, Prof. Imtiaz?
No, not yet.
Okay, I think you should get a copy of this, but you can also download from the website.
Okay.
IIUM policies and guidelines on Islamization, right?
Yeah.
Produced by Centris in 2013 under the directorship of Dr. Hazizan Noon. I explain in this book, I explain another preference of mine, i.e. that I prefer to use the term Islamization instead of Islamization. Now, I like to explain that as well in this paper. My explanation is as follows. The word Islamization, which I prefer, is derived from the adjective Islamic, while the word Islamization is derived from the word Islamize, from the verb Islamize. To Islamize is to make something Islamic, which means, among others, to be in accordance, in harmony, or agreeable with the values and norms of Islam, even if it is the product or the practice of non-Muslim peoples, cultures, societies, or civilizations. The verb to Islamize originally implies to convert to Islam. Hence, Islamization used to refer to the process of conversion to Islam. It is not surprising that many people, especially non-Muslims, perceive Islamization of human knowledge as a process of converting human knowledge to Islam. While the phrase Islamization of human knowledge may be understood to be similar to Islamization of human knowledge, it has the connotation of inclusivity, not exclusivity, from the adjective Islamic. And the word Islamic has a variety of meanings, one of which is the readiness to accept, to acknowledge, to adopt, or to accept anything produced, practiced, or originating from non-Muslim traditions, cultures, societies, systems, or institutions, which is considered to be in harmony with or not opposed to the worldview, principles, values, and norms of Islam. I think this was the attitude of our early scholars with regard to Chinese, Indian, or Greek civilization. So they were not using the word Islamic, but there were many things they saw which were in harmony with Islam, and to us that would be Islamic. So the attitude of Islamization was inherent in their worldview. The terminology of Islamization, to my mind, emphasizes the necessity of Muslims to work. I say necessity to work and act in accordance with the goal, with the Aqidah, the Sharia, and Akhlaq of Islam, to achieve the goals of Hasana fil Dunya and Hasana fil Akhirah. And this can also be achieved by adopting, by learning, by benefiting from all the good things which are Islamic in other civilizations. Okay, now I come to the subject of Islamization of the self. In this book, in the policies, we have under 551, 552, and 553, these are paragraphs which explain the meaning of Islamization of the self in Istac-Iium context. 551 says, Islamization or Islamization of the self in Istac-Iium entails a continuous process which focuses on development and strengthening of ilm, knowledge, iman, faith, yaqeen, certitude, taqwa, God-fearing consciousness, ihsan, or ihsan I translate here as benevolence, beneficent, moral beauty, and excellence, and husnul khuluq, good character, in the personality and life of a Muslim. And 552 says, the university is committed to the principle of Islamization of the self because it is the basis of holistic human development in the worldview of Islam. In order to overcome what the Quran describes as diseases of the heart or amrad al-qalb, and to fulfill the requisite spiritual and ethical attributes of true scholars, the Quran enjoins the process of tazkiyatun nafs, or purification of the soul, as a basic religious obligation and the proper development of the personality of seekers of knowledge and scholars who are imbued with the virtues of humility, God-fearing consciousness, ihsan, integrity, and the principles of spiritual moral excellence. The process of, and this is 553, the process of Islamization therefore includes the implementation of jihadun nafs, tazkiyatun nafs, and tahdhib al-akhlaq. I shall now elaborate on the meanings and implications of the above three statements. I would like to begin by our premise that human beings are spiritual and moral beings. From the worldview of the Quran, we know that the human being is firstly and essentially a spiritual moral being with a physical body. And the translation from Surah Al-Hijr is as follows: recall when your Lord said to the angels, I will indeed bring into being a human being out of dry wringing clay, wrought from black mud. When I have completed shaping him and have breathed into him of my spirit, then fall you down before him in prostration. Human being spiritual nature and essence is clearly revealed by Allah in the well-known Quranic verse, which is known as the Primordial Covenant between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all human beings in the pre-existential state. And the translation of the ayah is from Surah Al-A'raf, ayat 172, reads as follows: and recall, O Prophet, when your Lord brought forth descendants from the loins of the sons of Adam and made them witnesses against their own selves, asking them, am I not your Lord? They said, yes, we do testify. We did so lest you claim on the day of resurrection, we were unaware of this. So this is a very, very important ayat which emphasizes our spiritual, inherent spiritual nature and our God-inclined fitrah. The Quran explains in another verse that man's natural disposition or constitution called fitrah is none other than his innate spiritual nature referred to in the verse on the Primordial Covenant. It is a universal, unchanging nature of the human constitution as indicated in the following verse in Surah Ar-Rum, Surah 30, verse 30. O Prophet and his followers, set your face single-mindedly to the true faith and adhere to the true nature, that is fitrah, on which Allah has created human beings. There is no altering of the mold fashioned by Allah, and so on. And then I just want to quote the famous hadith from Bukhari and Muslim. Every child is born in the natural disposition, al-fitrah. It is only his parents that later turn him into a Jew, a Christian, or a Magian. So not only are we spiritual beings, but we were also born sinless, without the so-called original sin, which has created a lot of problems in Christian civilization. The fitrah, as man's instinctive and natural disposition towards the recognition of and submission to God, is the innate spiritual nature that was addressed in the Primordial Covenant, and it is Allah's intention that human beings remain steadfast on the true and original nature created by Allah. Human beings require the infallible knowledge, wisdom, and guidance of wahi and nubuwah, because that will take me also to the Islamization of knowledge, because human knowledge, true human knowledge is based on revelation and prophetic wisdom. And then, of course, the sound intellect. I would like to refer those who would like to know from among our young lecturers who would like to know more about the nafs, the soul, the qalb, and so on, to read the book of Al-Ghazali, the book of knowledge, and also the marvels of the heart. And then to also follow the writings of our young Islamic psychologist, Dr. Abdullah Rahman, who is a disciple and murid of our dear and beloved Prof. Malik Badri. The qalb, the heart, as the Allah gifted spiritual entity. And when we talk about Islamization of the self and Tazkiyatun Nafs, the focus is on the heart. All right, so that's why it's very important to go to the great works of Al-Ghazali and other early scholars of Islam. Al-Ghazali calls the heart as Latifa, Rabbaniya, Ruhaniya, a subtle spiritual entity of divine origin, which is of immense worldly and otherworldly value, which we Muslims and fellow human beings need always to preserve, protect, and purify from all kinds of corrupting elements and remove all the stains, veils, or rust from our sins, our bad deeds, and also from the lower self, al-hawa, and also from the an-nafsul ammara bisu, which incites to disobedience against religious norms and immoral acts. It is important to note that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in several verses of the Quran that these human hearts, this qalb or qulub in plural, are susceptible to amrad, to spiritual diseases. And these diseases will affect the knowledge construction of the modern human being. And if the heart is not purified from these diseases, and the aqal is affected by these diseases, then the knowledge produced will also be affected. And that is why in modern civilization, the paradigm of knowledge keeps on shifting and shifting because there is nothing that is immutable or absolutely true. Now, it's also explained by our great scholars, Al-Ghazali, and also elaborated by Abdullah Rahman, that the word aqal, which is used to translate reason or the intellect, is not mentioned in the Quran, but it is the qalb which is mentioned, and it is intellection is one of the functions of the qalb. So reasoning is one of the functions of the qalb. And this is a big difference between the Islamic worldview and the Western secular worldview. And this also justifies why we need to begin Islamization of knowledge with Islamization of the self, concentrating on the heart, because it is the quality of the heart that impacts upon the knowledge to be constructed. And it also explains why one of the major functions of the Prophet, all the prophets, is tazkiyah. In several, I think 3 or 4 verses of the Quran, Allah explains that He has sent these prophets. First is yatlu alayhim ayatihi, that He would this prophet would would convey, would read, would recite the revealed verses from the revealed book. And then وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and then وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. So tazkiyah is a fundamental function of prophethood. And once you get this tazkiyah of the self and of society, then you can build a strong civilization. So this was the process. In Mecca, the emphasis was on tazkiyah an-nafs, cleaning the heart. In Medina, building the city based on this purified heart, based on the aql of the ulul albab. There is a people who have sound intellects. All right. Then, the spiritual heart occupies a central position in the worldview of many world religions or religious philosophies, and the worldview of the Quran underscores the necessity of every believer to carry out the personal responsibility. It's fardu ayn of a cleaning or purifying the soul, tazkiyatun nafs, and B, the key role to be played by the hearts of the believers, that is qulub al-mu'minin, in the construction of virtuous societies, cultures, and civilization, driven by the mission of Rahmatan lil Alameen. It is important that we Muslims have a good understanding of the heart of the believers. And so when new staff join IIUM, they need to understand this, because they will not be able to construct Islamization of human knowledge the way we want it in the tradition of Al-Ghazali, if they do not take the issue of the heart seriously. It is, so I say that it is important that we Muslims have a good understanding of qulub al-mu'minin in the Quran, as opposed to the heart of the hardcore materialists, the self-deluded hypocrites, the arrogant disbelievers, the defiant atheists, or the unrepentant sinners. The hearts of the believers are hearts which get illuminated by the light, the nur of divine guidance, the wisdom and intuition. Informed and nurtured by the knowledge and wisdom of the Quran and the Sunnah, these hearts inspire, motivate, strengthen, and spur the believers to greater heights of spiritual ethical development and progress against the tide and forces of disbelief, polytheism, corruption, anarchy, depravity, immorality, falsehood, nihilism, atheism, individualism, racism, and secularism. Now, if our lecturers who join IIUM for the first time are exposed to this kind of process of leadership training to become good scholars from the worldview of the Quran, they will be able to inspire the students, because in IIUM, our academic staff are also murabbi, and our students are not going to be the slaves of the market. They are going to be the civilization builders. They are the shapers of the ummatan wasata for the good of all mankind, and they should not be affected by all those viruses and pandemic and cancer of corruption, deception, as well as the nihilistic, atheistic, agnostic trends of thought which abound in today's academia. The sound iman-based reasoning faculty of this type of qalb leads the believers as the ulul albab to explore the beautiful as well the beneficial signs of Allah in the heavens and the earth. This is the work of the Muslim scientists. With this worldview, they will see the universe differently from the way that positivists, agnostics, and atheists or naturalists see the universe. And there, as ulul albab, the scientific and technological activities are a form of dhikrullah, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are asked by Allah to remember him a lot. On Friday, when you go to the Jum'ah, you listen to the prayer, but after the khutbah is over, the prayer is over, you may go out and seek the bounties of Allah, but remember Allah much. And then as ulul albab, our lecturers also have in the heart the fear, al-khawf and al-khashya, that any wrongdoings or transgressions on their part would lead them to khizyun in the hereafter, to ignominy, to shame in the hereafter, eternal suffering and punishment in hell. So, okay, now I come to the meaning of Taribia and nafs. Tazkiyah and nafs. Tazkiyah originally means growth and nama, blessing, al-barakah, and increase of goodness, riyadah al-khair. It may be defined as follows: a necessary and fundamental process of cleansing, purifying, and nurturing, all at the same time, to attain the desirable objectives in human society and human lives. Islam requires that the human society be cleansed and purified of jahiliyyah and un-Islamic elements in order to be Islamicized, so that the original fitrah of human beings and the Islamic qualities would grow and develop to become virtuous individuals, virtuous societies, and virtuous civilizations. Here we can refer to this Surah Ash-Shams I think in verses 7, 8, 9. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. So Allah wants us to purify the nafs. Once it is purified, then you can get al-falah. So Islamization of the self must precede Islamization of human knowledge, which leads to the construction of a civilization that will bring al-falah to mankind. But if you do not take care of the nafs and you allow it to rot, then it's going to lead to failure and corruption as we see today. So tazkiyah as a general principle of human and societal purification is one of the most important objectives of the Quran and of Islam. Now, in Malaysian society today, Prof. Imtiaz, there is also the pandemic of political corruption and hypocrisy, which are in dire need for eradication. I have addressed this in my latest book, which you have referred to. Many of our leaders have failed partly because of following the lower self, which is called an-nafsul ammara bis-su, and following the passion, the hawa, as well as the waswasa of shaitan, the whisperings of shaitan. And therefore, it is very crucial that those wanting to be societal, political, or national leaders, and this will include some of our students, they must ensure that they possess traits of good character, akhlaq madhmuma and akhlaq mahmuda. That is why Al-Ghazali emphasizes the importance of tahdhib al-akhlaq, in his Ihya Ulumuddin. In our work in IIUM as a excuse me. In our work as IIUM staff, we need to undergo the process of tazkiyatun nafs and not jump straight into Islamization of knowledge without understanding the problem of the qalb, the problem of the nafs, the problem of hawa, the problem of shaitan and his ways of getting into the human heart. Some of us in IIUM may be suffering from moral diseases associated with academic career and academic obsession with the KPIs. Alhamdulillah, I am liberated from this disease of the Alhamdulillah. And I'm sure man also is securely liberated from this disease. But at one time we were really exposed to this disease. We could not escape. And this has caused a lot of displeasure among the academic staff. We hope that the exposure to the spiritual, moral discipline of tazkiyatun nafs in IIUM will make our academic staff better prepared to undertake the task of Islamization of human knowledge, particularly after understanding the nature and function of our God-given aqal, which are different from the secularized and absolutized reason in modern civilization. They will also understand from the Quran that the nature and functions of God-fearing scholars, such as the true ulama, the scholars with khashiyatullah, or those who possess true knowledge, alladhina utul ilm, and the possessors of sound intellects, the ulul albab, are not the same as those of secularized, agnostic, or atheistic scholars and intellectuals in today's world. They will understand from ayat 143 of Surah Al-Baqarah that the Islamic Ummah has been designated by Allah to be witnesses, shuhada, for the whole of mankind, with its divinely prescribed status as ummatan wasata litakunu shuhada ala nas. Also important for our staff, students, and admin staff to understand our philosophy in IIUM, which is based on Iqra. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Why did we choose Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq? I will not be able to explain here because of the time factor, but it's very important in our understanding of Islamization of knowledge to really understand what are the implications of Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. And then Allah says كلا إن الإنسان لا يطغى أن رآه استغنى. But human beings are bound to transgress the limits imposed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they think they are actually freed from having to follow divine revelation. This idea of istighna, self-sufficiency. Now, I will end with by addressing one issue, a very important issue, also been discussed in the West among Western scholars, the limitations of human intellect. And Prof. Osman can also talk about the limitations of natural sciences. The narrowly skewed nature of secularized human knowledge of modern post-Enlightenment civilization has been confined only to what could be perceived or conveyed by the senses or secularized science, namely the external, the tangible, the perceivable, material realities, is indicated in the verse 6 to 8 of Surah Ar-Rum, which I translate as follows. Never does God fail to fulfill his promise, but most people know it not. They know but the outer surface of this world's life, whereas of the ultimate things, they are utterly unaware. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. So this appears, in our humble opinion, to be a severe divine critique, if not indictment as well, of the dominant but flawed secularized way of thinking as manifested in scientism or in rationalistic analysis of postmodern contemporary civilization, even among Muslim elites and in mainstream Muslim institutions. And we have some of the Muslim scientists in Malaysia as well, who are affected by this secularized way of thinking. The secular and dominant civilization built upon secularized science, secularized technology, social sciences, and secularized humanities fundamentally negate divine revelation as a source of knowledge and marginalize the truths and wisdom presented by it. Of course, this is an issue of epistemology. When you go into Islamization of human knowledge, you are actually going into the area of epistemology, basically epistemology. But when you are beginning with Islamization of the self, you're not going into epistemology, you're going into anthropology, psychology, the spirit, the soul, which are all intangible, but very, very important indeed. In this connection, I would like, with regard to that verse, Muhammad Asad gives the following commentary. He says, that avoid those who turn away from all remembrance of us and desire nothing but the life of this world. That is to them the only thing worth knowing. That is the sum total of knowledge, mablagh al-ilm. Indeed, your sustainer is fully aware as who has strayed from his path and who knows, and he knows best those who follow his guidance. Abdullah Yusuf Ali has a commentary on this. He says, men with a materialistic turn of mind, whose desires are bounded by material things, will not go beyond those things. Their knowledge and will be limited to the narrow circle in which their thoughts move. The spiritual world is beyond their ken, while persons with a spiritual outlook, even though they may fall again and again in attaining their full ideals, are on the right path. They're willing to receive guidance, and Allah's grace will find them out and help them. So one of the issues with the secular worldview is that its worldview is just limited to this world and nothing beyond that. Whereas the Islamic worldview, the Islamic scholar, of course, lives in the world, understands the world, but also realizes and knows very well that the world is transient. This alam al-shahada is not the end of it. It's just the beginning of reality, which will come after death. And so the Islamic scholar is also concerned about what's going to happen to him in the hereafter with his knowledge. And that's why he needs to deconstruct the present secular structure, and then reconstruct the holistic, Islamicized, which is inclusivistic vision of knowledge, first based on revelation, and then based on sound knowledge coming from all over the world. So I will end here, and would like our colleagues to guide me and to correct me where I'm wrong. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair, Professor Kamal Hassan. It is a pleasure to listen to your all very richful lecture, full of richness and enlightenment. I cannot summarize the whole lecture here today at this moment, but I'll just say highlight some few points. Professor Kamal Hassan started with how the colonial impact led to the rise of the movement of Islamization of knowledge. But as it progressed and as it was applied here at Iium, it entered into the second phase, which is what he calls the Islamization of knowledge. And that is more of as an inclusive approach to knowledge, and inclusive of also other civilization. That the Muslims can learn things which are in harmony with the Islamic worldview, with Islamic akhlaq, with Islamic aqidah and akhlaq and Islamic morality. And then he went on to talk about, he made several references to the Quranic verses about fitrah, as God inclined fitrah, and the role of qalb as the center of knowledge. And if the qalb is pure, then we don't suffer from the defilements, impurities, and spiritual diseases which are really there in the modern and currently the postmodern world. We are already impacted it with the climate change and the pandemic which we are facing. And also the most important thing which is needed today is the skill of nafs, and he referred to several verses even which is referred in Surah Al-Kahf, and the phase and the life and the seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his first phase of tazkiyah the nafs in Makkah, and then the building of the city of Medina as an example, as the example of the purification of heart and the application for the construction of a society, building of a society. And this is where our role as educators at Iium, at Istac comes in, that we are going to produce and we are engaging in. And Iium has been engaging in this higher approach to knowledge, moving us away from the lower self to the higher self, and moving away from the secularism, postmodernism, atheism, nihilism, which has become the mode of culture and civilization today. So Islamization of knowledge today emphasizes the Islamization of self. And he also referred to the corruption which is present not only in Malaysia, but it can also be applied to the larger Muslim world, where we see hypocrisy and corruption as a way of politics, and moving away from purification of self. And when the purification of self has not taken place, purification of society is impossible. So again and again, he emphasized on the importance of the need of linking aql and qalb and siyasa and society at the same time. Towards the end of his presentation, he talked about the importance of Iqra, the culture of Iqra, and which is the end of approach to knowledge. And we need to build a culture of Iqra, of knowledge. And so that, because our life does not end in this world, but it also has a second part, which is beyond this world. And we need to deconstruct the secular, the atheist, the postmodernist, the nihilist trends which are present not only in the West or in the other societies, but also among ourselves. So this is my just brief description. I try to summarize here. Professor Kamal, there are several questions here, which I'm going to read out to you. And then we are welcome to answer them. The first question is from Afifa Abbas. I think she's joining us from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. She's asking the question: What about Islamic revealed knowledge that is produced by humans? Has it diverse interpretations, or should it be human knowledge too?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, this is a very important question. What we have done in Istac-Iium when we talk about Islamization of human knowledge, we do not include the religious sciences because we feel that the major issue with the secularized knowledge is epistemology. That is, that knowledge is acquired only by the senses and human reason and experience, and revelation has no place in it. Whereas Islamic revealed knowledge disciplines are based on the Quranic worldview using wahi as the basis of knowledge. So on that score, it is not correct, to my mind, to put revealed knowledge in the same basket as human sciences and natural sciences. Yeah, and the fact is called revealed knowledge means that it belongs to a different category, that is knowledge revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. So it has to be judged differently. And the way to judge it from my point of view is what I call relevantization. Yeah, relevantization. How relevant is our study of fiqh today? How relevant is our study of usuluddin? How relevant is our study of other religious sciences to the problems of the world today? All right. So to me, that is the yardstick. That is how you should evaluate the revealed knowledge, because you cannot question the epistemological underpinnings. Yeah, you cannot question that, but you can question how they make the subject relevant. That's one. Second is, are they truly representing the Taribia of Islam in their personality? Okay, so that again is not something that we do in assessing Islamization of knowledge. So for us, we will look at Islamization of the self of the lecturers. Yeah, you have to look at how the lecturers actually internalize the spiritual values of tarbiyah ruhiyya, so that they become good murabbi. Okay, so that is why we feel that revealed knowledge, Islamic revealed knowledge disciplines do not actually come under Islamization of human knowledge. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very clearly you explained that how much relevant are our approaches to knowledge, religious sciences, to the problems which we are facing today, especially what is happening in the last 2-3 days, the flooding which has taken place in Malaysia. I think this is for the first time the human being, the Malaysian society is facing a challenge of climate change. I will go to the next question. It is from Muhammad Shahzani Masri. He is joining us from University of Sarawak. He's asking the question, which is related to what your comment you mentioned about inclusivity towards knowledge. And the question is, can we relate Islamization of the self with the Buddhist conception of nirvana?
Okay, well, the best person to speak on the Buddhist conception of nirvana is Professor Imtiaz.
I would say yes, it could be a parallel, with Islamic idea of of not knowing yourself. But that is another topic, and we can discuss it later on.
Look, I really cannot answer this question because Buddhism, I've studied a little bit of Buddhism many years ago at Columbia University, but I cannot really, I do not know how to compare it with Islamization of the self. But insofar as overcoming the self, I think we have a commonality between Buddhism and Islam. I think Buddhism is very, very much concerned about the evil effects of the self.
Yeah.
That is something we can learn, but how to overcome it, when do you get into nirvana, that is something I am not able to address, but I hope Imtiaz maybe can throw some light on this.
Yeah, I can just say that when Buddhism talks about removing of impurities and defilements, as a way towards self-realization, yes, we can see similarities over there, but we cannot say all religions are different. So they have their own way, and we have our own way. For us, the falah is important. Falah fil akhirah is more important, and which is very much mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wal akhirati hasana. Well, the concept of akhirah is different in Buddhism, but that is for another day of a discussion. Let me go to another question here. Is there a possibility to realize a refined heart with a proper intention and proper action to maintain a state, to maintain a continuous state throughout one's life? If so, there is some sort of eureka moment.
Oh, that is a tough question. But certainly the Quran and the Sunnah want us to always undergo the process of purification with the practice of dhikrullah. Dhikrullah in all its forms is a mechanism of refinement of the heart, and but to be able to be continuously in this state of refinement is not easy, because as we proceed in our life, the challenges from shaitan can be more delicate, more difficult to notice and to avert. So you have to be always on your guard against the machinations of shaitan. And Al-Ghazali tells us in his book, Wonders of the Heart, that there are, I think, 11 gates by which shaitan enters the human heart. I thought I have only one gate. I have 11 gates to look after. So it's not easy. And his attacks, satanic attacks, are relentless. And he never gives up, he never sleeps. So it is, we have to keep that in mind. But if you have the right company, you have to choose the right company and practice dhikrullah throughout your lives. Inshallah, Allah will help you to reach that steady state of the soul, inshallah.
You remind me of Muhammad Asad's translation of word taqwa as being God consciousness. We have to be in this moment of God consciousness, taqwa, all the time. Taqwa is not only fear of Allah, but consciousness of every moment and every minute. Let me go to the next question. It is from Izamir Azral. He is a PhD student here at Istac. And the question is that he says he has witnessed and experienced among multi-level of students whose hearts are appearing to be unyielding to Islamic teachings and values. They prefer modernizing liberation of the body and mind. So what approaches would you recommend in softening their hearts to Islamic values, akhlaq, and Islamic way of life? Allahu Alam.
Oh, I believe brother, what's his name, brother Zamir?
Izamir.
Zamir.
Yeah.
Maybe referring to some of our students or students from other universities. If students from other universities, there's nothing much we can do because they are not required to take courses from Islamic revealed knowledge. But if you are referring to students of Iium, then if you see some very serious problems among students, and I have come across such problems. Some students thought or preferred to follow the way of the atheists and the agnostics. So you have to handle them carefully. I hope that Istac lecturers will be able to identify some of these students and then engage them in the proper way so that eventually they can come back to the right path. But yeah.
Yeah, Izamir is also, he's an educator. I think he was mostly referring to students outside Iium.
Oh, outside. Oh.
Yeah.
Outside, then of course it's difficult because they come from different backgrounds. So you have to address the issue of da'wah of Islam to the younger generation in today's society. How do you address the challenges in the social media? Because a lot of the students are actually influenced by things in the social media. So that is, so there are new challenges of da'wah in today's world. And in Malaysia, we talk about techno-da'i, a da'i who is well-versed with the information technology and also learn to produce content which are Islamic. Otherwise, our young people will always be consumers of what comes out. The garbage that has been put in will also enter their minds and their souls. But we hope that our Islamic da'wah in Malaysia and also in other countries will improve as far as engaging the ICT and the social media.
Yeah, you very well referred to it actually in your presentation when you talked about that we have to move from epistemology to anthropology, psychology, sociology in the application. So that is a wider application of what you mentioned of the Islamization of the self. And that is a very important point, especially today when we have to move away, not move away, join theology with sociology, because sociology is changing very fast. Let me go to the next question from Sister Najah Ahmad. She says, we cannot escape from KPI, ISO, SKT as long as we are working in the university. What is your comment on that?
Okay, fine. My sympathies are with you, but have patience because I went through all that. Yeah, one thing is, I think in our university, I think we have the rector is quite sympathetic to our dilemmas, and therefore you can negotiate on the terms of the KPI. I think that should be the way, rather than it's just a one-way traffic. You are at the other end, at the receiving end. But I hope that before the KPIs are being, decided, that you have a say in the construction of the KPI. I think that is more democratic, and that is better in inducing people to comply inshallah.
Yeah, I'm rushing, to complete my KPI before 30th of December, APR and repository and all this, very technical. It is consuming so much of time, valuable time, which could be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Okay, next question is from Sister Noor Arif Fifa. Professor, can you say that Ulul Albab is a person who is recognized by Allah, who has a clear and clean heart, consistent in the process of tadabbur, al-Quran, understanding the message, and can apply it in their life? As a consequence, they are always in the state of remembrance of Allah or taqwa and subscribe to Tawhidic paradigm, thus going back to understand the Quran through the model of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah, very good definition. I will not disagree with Sister Noor Arif. It's just that the word Ulul Albab is a plural, not a singular. So Ulul Albab is not a person, but Ulul Albab are persons, or you can say people who possess sound reason. Ashabul Uqul as-Salima. That's how the Mufassirun translate Ulul Albab. Ashabul Uqul as-Salima. These are the possessors of sound intellect. You see, the word is intellect, but what kind of intellect? The intellect that remembers Allah all the time. This is a different kind of intellect from the Enlightenment intellect, which is, which has deified itself, whereas the Ulul Albab intellect is the intellect of a perceptive of servant of Allah, remembering the hereafter, because at the end it's always afraid of, the verse reads, الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. Yeah? At the end, فقنا عذاب النار, avert from us the punishment of the fire. So this is really a very rare kind of intellect. But this is the intellect of our great scholars. And we had great scholars in the past. Why can't we have great scholars now? We can. If we, we transform our system of education, our KPIs and all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there's several questions there. Can tell me, how many of them you can take.
All right.
I think there are about 8 more, 10 more. Lee Barry is saying, I'm trying to summarize his first question. He says that all knowledge, natural sciences, social sciences is not disconnected from Allah to Adam. So it is not proper to say that there is something called as pure human knowledge, which is he defines this term pure human knowledge as not being disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gift of Allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam. Your comment on that?
I cannot really get the main.
The main argument is saying that social sciences, natural sciences knowledge is not disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to say human knowledge is not proper. Your distinction of separating between.
Oh, okay. Okay. But if you do not qualify the word knowledge with human, then divine knowledge is in it. So divine knowledge, as we know, is not subjected to correction or critique. Our problem is with the human part. The knowledge that should inform the different disciplines should of course be based on divine guidance, right? And divine values and norms. But the right aqal can develop that knowledge to deal with the details in human life. Yeah, so Allah has given the aqal, but the aqal is based on iman and the qalb and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in today's social sciences and humanities, you find that divine knowledge is missing. Yeah, it's missing. So that is why I feel that you need to distinguish between human knowledge and divine knowledge. Al-Ghazali says that also in his book, that there is such a thing called divine knowledge and human knowledge. There is, for instance, ulum shar'iyya and ulum غير شرعية, ulum diniyya and ulum dunyawiyya. So diniyya, shar'iyya, you don't try to correct it because it is derived directly from divine revelation. But the only problem, as I said, is in today's world, how do you make it relevant? Yeah, how do you bring divine revelation to become relevant to the problems of the world today? So that's that much I can say.
Yeah, I go to our Professor Muhammad Aslam Hanif. Prof, does relevance include ability to lead? That is, the Iohk agenda is able to influence policy and society.
Well, yeah, why not? I have not thought about it. I was concerned more about how the religious values and principles and norms are really being interpreted to be problem solving in today's world, and not just as something to be imposed on society. So the ability to lead is also important. But I have not addressed this in my discussion on the relevantization. But I thank Prof. Aslam for bringing up this idea of ability to lead, because not you may have provided the relevance of Islamic teachings to some of the social problems of today, but you yourself are not able to lead. And that is a weakness. The ability to lead is of course, is a higher value to be achieved. And we hope, inshallah, in our kulliyah, the idea of leadership is also addressed in the kulliyah curriculum, inshallah.
Okay, this is the last question from Dr. Yusuf Ibrahim from UNISA in Brunei. How do we cope with the situation where Muslims in multi-religious society are considering of harmonizing Islamic values with Western values in order to maintain the so-called balance of modern Islamic personality?
Yeah, okay, it depends on what you mean by harmonizing. This is not easy to define, because harmonizing to me implies essentially there is inherent harmony in the two entities which are going to be harmonized. All right. For instance, the Kulliyah of Laws has been working on harmonization of Sharia laws with the civil laws. I do believe that not everything in the Sharia laws can be harmonized unless the worldview is similar, and the terms of the law are also acceptable. it is good to harmonize rather than just standing apart from one another. What is to be harmonized, I think, is the issue. I do not know if Brother Yusuf would like to expand on what is to be harmonized. Then I can take on from there, but otherwise, that's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, we have come to now, we have today about 66 participants who have joined us from different parts of the world to listen to Professor Tansari, Professor Kamal Hassan, and a very rich in, contribution and discussion and discourse on the topic of Islamization of self. We are going beyond, from Islamization of knowledge to a next level of Islamization of self. So before we end our session here this morning, I will call upon Professor Abdulaziz Bargut, the Dean of Istac, to say a few words. Professor Abdulaziz Bargut, please. I hope he's here. He told me. Professor Abdulaziz. Professor Abdulaziz, he has gone to a meeting, I think. If not, may I call on the spot Professor Dato Usman Bakar to say a few words of thanks to Professor Kamal Hassan?
All right, Professor Bargut is not around. Of course, on behalf of Istac, I would like to thank Professor Kamal for his informative and enlightening presentation. I think it's a very, very important topic, as he has mentioned. And we hope that we don't rest there. I think it is important. The issues that he has raised, we should ask ourselves where we are with respect to these ideas. Are we moving forward, or just still on the same level of our knowledge? I think the idea of having this series of lectures is so that, especially for our students, our postgraduate students, to understand the main ideas surrounding Islamization, and today we listen to what's regarded as a neglected aspect, which is dealing with the self, with the what we call the subjective pole of knowledge and the knower itself. Basically, it's about Islamization of the knower itself rather than the knowledge that is being known. So I think we have listened to many insightful ideas, inshallah. So thank you very much, Professor Kamal, for your presentation this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Bargut,
there you are.
Okay. Okay, Professor Bargut, you go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I am in another meeting, but I followed the whole lecture and all the comments and the answers of Prof. Kamal. You want me to conclude, or?
Yes, please. Yes,
okay,
yes.
okay. Alhamdulillah, we are really very glad and happy to have Professor Kamal with us here, talking about this very important topic. And let me just tell all our great scholars who are with us here today. In fact, the people who attended this program today are very special. They are all scholars, and very special group of postgraduate students and scholars. Like just to mention that when I came in last 4 months to Istac as the new dean, the first thing I did, I established the coordinator for Islamization of human knowledge in the institute here. It was not there. And the intention was really for Istac to contribute in the next level of Islamization of knowledge. And I think during the time of Prof. Kamal and all our professors and doctors, administrators, in the last almost 40 years, we have done really great towards this idea of Islamization of knowledge, integration of knowledge. But I think it's the time now, as Prof. Kamal and the team, they were thinking in the 2070 vision of the university and also the 2040 vision of the university. We need also to enhance and deepen our understanding and articulation of this project of Islamization of knowledge. That's why we started this series of, and we call it Futures of Integration of Human Knowledge and Civilizational Development. So that our aim, Islamization project, will move forward to another level in which we inshallah involve more, engage in multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary research and products in this area. So I think Professor Osman in his first lecture has tried to infuse certain ideas to move us from in fact, what we have already done, and he raised very pertinent questions so that the Muslim scholars, thinkers in this very important area of discipline, of Islamization of human knowledge, to start thinking about what will be the next level so that we move, inshallah. I think today Prof. Kamal has also opened another important area, which is the Islamization of the human self. And I think as he clearly explained that actually it's the condition for, in fact, the success of the Islamization of knowledge. Because in Islam, it's very hard to separate between Iman, Ilm, Amal, and impact or nafa to the ummah. So I think what Professor Kamal is trying to tell us is that we need to go back to the basic where the human himself, the Islamizer himself, is actually equipped with the soul qualities, the heart qualities, the mind qualities, and the personality qualities, so that his knowledge reflects that quality of the human. That's why I think what Prof. Kamal has explained to us today is really another area for our future undertakings, and also for our upcoming research projects, postgraduate research projects, master and PhD in the institute here. And also we are going to form a think tank on the, now we have a coordinator of Islamization of knowledge, Alhamdulillah, Dr. Imtiaz is trying to move things and work out things. And we will, inshallah, start this series, and we will have an international or world congress on the achievement done by Islamization and the next level of our movement, inshallah, towards this project. And also we will have a think tank group, local and international, to put real ideas how now the Islamization of the self, the Islamization of knowledge, all integrated in our next action, plan of action, inshallah. This is why I really thank Prof. Kamal for all these ideas, and mashallah, Prof. Kamal always, the paper is always ready, alhamdulillah. So we hope to publish also this paper, this series of ideas, and there is stack here, whether in a book of this new series or articles or special issues under Shajara, inshallah. With this, I would like to thank also Prof. Osman for his words of wisdom before I came in, and all the scholars, postgraduate student, participant from Malaysia, from overseas. And also I would like to thank Dr. Imtiaz. for organizing this and taking really great action towards enhancing the role of Istac in advancing the cause of Islamization of human knowledge in its two sides, inshallah, the knowledge, the methodology, the interdisciplinary, the products, and the side of the human, the soul, the heart. We will collaborate with centers, with the other kulliyas, and with also outside institutions to achieve this, inshallah. I hope the coordinator of Islamization of Knowledge in Istac-Iium can come up with an action plan of 2 to 3 years, and we will, inshallah, do our best to move. Your support of our endeavors, I think, is great. May Allah bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
وعليكم
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We ended this session with the Surah Al-Asr. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
Jazakumullah khair. Shukran jaziran. See you all in the next meeting. Assalamu alaikum. Salam.